8 days after the Montreal screwjob, it was still the biggest talking point in the industry. WCW were doing record business on the way to Starrcade 97, announcing record first-day ticket sales for the show. In the middle of that run, the two major talking points on November 17 were both Montreal-related. WWF, after getting a substantial viewership boost since it happened, were doing everything to ride the wave of interest coming from the incident, heavily promoting what was outside of a Bret Hart appearance, the biggest fuel to the Montreal fire, a Vince McMahon shoot interview on the show. The other point was Rick Rude, a regular member of DX on WWF television, jumping to WCW on short notice after a phone conversation with Eric Bischoff. Rude, who was working without a contract at the time, along with a group of high-profile names like Owen, Bulldog, Foley, and Taker, either considered it, or no-show draw the day after. Rude taped his Raw segment a day earlier on Sunday, before signing with Eric. Rude cut a shoot promo on McMahon and Michaels, talking openly about the match finish before getting into storyline of Bret Hart joining him in the NWO. Steve Austin opened draw in a confrontation with Rock and the Nation, with Rock again stealing the IC title belt. McMahon's interview was promoted and separated to two segments, one in the second quarter head-to-head, and one in the second hour unopposed. Both segments drew the two highest-rated Raw segments with a 3.4 and then a 3.5, almost matching the quarter audience in the first one. On a show where Vince hyped the big interview on the Raw broadcast, along with an AOL chat interview right after the show to capitalize on the interest, it was again Bischoff who one-upped him. After years of giving away results and saying that the competition are taping their shows, nothing emphasized it more than a prime example on air, making Rick Rude the first wrestler to appear on both programs on the same night, in the process embarrassing the WWF. To add to it in a clever way, Rude also shaved his beard that he had on the Raw taping, leaving no doubt for viewers, and no chance for the company to get out of what was happening. JR and Cornette, who were adding commentary in post-production, made references to the situation during his segment with DX. Rude entered the arena on TNT at around 8:10 p.m., less than an hour later, he was on USA on Raw. WCW were at the final stages of the Hogan vs. Sting build-up for Starrcade 97, coming a week after the NWO got heat on Sting for the first time in almost a year. The focus of the show was Scott Hall and Eric continuing the almost year-long program with Larry Zbyszko leading into the biggest show of the year, along with Luger and Giant against the NWO as the main babyfaces on the show, leading to the last two segments of Luger vs. Kurt Hennig, and Hall vs. Giant, ending with a big brawl as preview for the World War III pay-per-view 6 days later. NWO members disrupted the show throughout, giving hints of a complete takeover of the show as the original plan was to separate both brands starting with Thunder in January 1998. Kane interrupted an entertaining minis match just before the start of the second hour. With Raw starting an hour later, the unopposed hour was a way to get potential viewers who weren't watching regularly, which often didn't happen. Last week for the day after Survivor Series was one of the first times the company got a big second hour boost, leading to saving the second part of the Vince interview for when WCW were off the air in an attempt to get some of the viewers back, which didn't work on the same level. Vince McMahon's shoot interview ended up as one of the most memorable segments in wrestling television history. Vince, who still had a noticeable bruise on his eye from Bret's punch 7 days earlier, was talking openly about every detail of the story, the backstage confrontation, the figures of the contract with WCW, the Hart vs. Michaels rivalry, etc. McMahon obviously talking from his perspective, leading to a public back and forth with Bret for years to come, with Bret already responding days later. Vince justified his actions in a way that made him a natural villain to viewers, in what would be the start of his run as a regular on-screen heel character. Raw's main event was another preview for programs that will play a major factor in taking things to another level just a year later. With Rock facing Dude Love, ending with another brawl of Austin and the Nation to close the show.